Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be doing an NFL quarterbacks tier list video for going into the 2019 NFL season. So you guys have probably seen a lot of these before, but just to give a preview of what the tiers are, S tier is the premium top tier quarterbacks in the league, and then you have your A, B, C, and D tiers. So let's get right into it. Start off, we have Josh Allen, second-year quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to put him as a C-tier quarterback. He was a high draft pick last year, I believe the 7th overall pick, and I really like his progression his rookie year, even though the Buffalo Bills weren't very talented. He's a lot more mobile than I thought he'd be. He had at least one game where he had over 100 yards rushing. Even though he looks like Ben Roethlisberger out there and with his 6'7" frame, he's taller than Big Ben. He's got about the same girth as Big Ben. He's got a cannon for an arm, probably one of the 3 to 5 strongest arms in the NFL. But it hasn't translated yet in the production. It's only been 1 year, so we'll see what he brings in year 2. But so far, I would put Josh Allen as a C-tier quarterback. Now with Tom Brady, this is obviously S-tier quarterback. What he's doing still, what he's done, 6 Super Bowls, 9 Super Bowl appearances. He's just unbelievable. 41, going on 42 in August, I believe he turns 42. Still playing strong. He's an S-tier quarterback, unquestionable. Now moving on to Drew Brees. Drew Brees, I'm going to put in the S tier. He's had so many 5,000-yard passing seasons, and I know the Saints' offense is really tailored to the passing game with Sean Payton, but you still can't deny the proficiency and efficiency of Drew Brees. Very accurate quarterback. The fact that he hasn't won an NFL MVP is, frankly, a travesty. I think he has 5,000-yard passing seasons. I think that's more than any other quarterbacks. Like, if you group all the quarterbacks in NFL history, I think he has more 5,000-yard passing seasons or around as many as everyone else. Just unbelievable. So Drew Brees is an S-tier quarterback. He has a Super Bowl. He had a stretch of years where the Saints didn't really make the playoffs, so you could argue that could bring him down. But entering the 2019 NFL season, Drew Brees is an S-tier quarterback, in my opinion. Now, moving on to Derek Carr of the Oakland Raiders. I'm going to put him at C tier. However, he has the ability, as he's shown. I believe 3 years ago he was an MVP candidate before he went down, and the Raiders lost to the Texans in the wild card round of the playoffs. Derek Carr he struggled with some injuries. The Raiders obviously have been devoid of talent the last few years, so it's been difficult for him to continue to progress in his young career. He's still a young quarterback, but based on the recent track record and entering 2019, I would rate him as a C-tier quarterback, but obviously getting Antonio Brown from Pittsburgh, one of the best receivers in the NFL. They drafted Alabama running back Josh Jacobs in the latter half of the first round. So he's getting some playmakers out there. Hopefully he can progress, because he has the ability to be a B, even potentially an A-tier quarterback, if he has the right system around him and the right playmakers around him, and I think he has the potential to do that. But again, to start the 2019 season, I think he's a C-tier quarterback. Now, Kirk Cousins, he has the classic B-tier quarterback, but I'm going to put him in C-tier. I don't think he's very effective. I think he's very easy to scheme towards. I think if you make Kirk Cousins make reads, get into his third and fourth progressions and force him to really throw the ball downfield rather than work the short and intermediate game, I think he's largely ineffective. There's players like Tom Brady taken in the 6th round, obviously misevaluation there. Russell Wilson, 3rd round, a misevaluation. Kirk Cousins was a 4th round pick. However, there are reasons that people get taken later in the draft. And Kirk Cousins had his, and I think he's gotten his guaranteed money now. 3 years, $84 million from the Minnesota Vikings. We've seen what Kirk Cousins is. He's a 8-8, 9-7 quarterback. He's gonna win you games, but when it matters most, he doesn't step up. And the Vikings had a chance to make the playoffs by beating the Bears in Week 17 last year, and they couldn't do it. Kirk Cousins has been to the playoffs, I believe, once in his career. He lost right away in the 1st round. So, to me, he's a C-tier quarterback. I think he's grossly overpaid. Honestly, if Case Keenum and Kirk Cousins, Kirk replaced Case Keenum, and now Case is ironically in Washington after making a stop in Denver. I don't see much difference between the two. I think Kirk Cousins is a C-tier quarterback. Now, Andy Dalton, I actually think Andy Dalton's a B-tier quarterback. Andy Dalton gets a lot of flack because he's on the Cincinnati Bengals, who are labeled as perpetual underachievers, not able to win a playoff game in Marvin Lewis's tenure with the team. That spanned, 14, 15 years since 2003 to beginning of 2019. Yeah, so Andy Dalton gets a lot of flack for being connected to that ineptitude with the Cincinnati Bengals. But if you look at him as a passer, now he's had A.J. Green, Tyler Eifert when he's healthy. Tyler Boyd, he's stepped up. So he's had some weapons, as well as like Joe Mixon, Jeremy Hill, and Giovanni Bernard at running back in the past. But he's been pretty efficient, and he's been able to have a few productive seasons. Obviously, would you like more out of him? Yeah. Is he a high B tier? No, I'd put him at a low B tier quarterback. But I think he's a B tier quarterback. I think you can do some things. Last year, they had a good start, but they faltered. So you can see the potential of Andy Dalton. He's just got to put it together for an entire season and into the postseason. So I'd put him at a low B tier quarterback. Now, Sam Darnold, he's similar to me to Josh Allen, but I think he has a little more upside than Josh Allen, so he's a high C tier quarterback to me. And I know you may think, why is Andy Dalton a low B tier and Sam Darnold is a high C tier? Like, Darnold should be higher than Andy Dalton. But I don't see it that way because I haven't seen the body of work from Sam Darnold yet. He had an up and down rookie year. I thought there were times where you saw his potential in the league. And I thought there were other times where you saw, the young mistakes a quarterback makes. Holding the ball too long, trying to force things into coverage. So does he have the potential to be a B or even an A tier quarterback? Yes. This is going into his 2nd year. He has that potential. He's just got to continue to grow and progress. But right now, he's a high C tier quarterback, in my opinion. Ryan Fitzpatrick is very interesting. If we're going his career, he's probably, honestly, in Andy Dalton territory. Probably behind Andy Dalton, but in that territory as that low B tier. I'd say entering 2019, he's probably a high C tier quarterback. Now, I'd say he's a mid C tier quarterback. I wouldn't put him ahead of Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr. Ryan Fitzpatrick has flashes where you think he could be a Pro Bowl quarterback. Like last year, he had multiple games where he strung over 400 yards passing, and you're like, this guy could be a Pro Bowler if it was just consistent. But it's not consistent. He had the potential to be that veteran guy, that journeyman that all of a sudden rises, into the ranks, after 9 or 10 years and is able to have a productive career as a starter for 5 to 7 years, even after being a journeyman for a while. Those are very few cases, very few and far between, but he had a chance to be one of those, kind of a Josh McCown type. But he's not as consistent as McCown. Will his best games be better than a guy like McCown? Yes. But his worst games will not rival anyone else. He'll have 5 interception games. He'll have games where he just can't hit our open receiver for his life. And for that reason, he is a mid-C tier quarterback in my eyes entering the 2019 season. Now, moving on to Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is another interesting case. I would put him... Honestly, I'd probably put him right ahead of Kirk Cousins. Now, Joe Flacco, since getting paid after the Super Bowl win, he has continued a downward trek and was obviously supplanted last season by Lamar Jackson. But Joe Flacco has the tools. He's a very physically gifted quarterback. I believe he's probably about 6'6". I don't know what his weight, probably about 240, 245-ish. He's got a pretty strong arm. I think his arm is underrated. It's probably just outside the top 5 strongest arms. I'd probably put it at around 7th or 8th strongest arm in the league. His accuracy is, solid. He has the ability to make those downfield throws and thread the needle in tight coverage. It's just about doing it consistently. So to me, we'll see what he's able to do in Denver and how they handle the Joe Flacco, Drew Lock situation. But to me, he's a mid-C tier quarterback. He has potential to get in that Andy Dalton range, and he's been above Andy Dalton range. He's been high B tier in the past. It's just been very, very inconsistent, and he's shown a downward regression rather than upward progression as you would want to see at the quarterback position. Now moving on to Nick Foles. Nick Foles is a mid to high B tier quarterback in my eyes. Mechanically and the way he's able to throw the ball downfield, it's pretty average. However, to me, it's comparable to Andy Dalton. His ability as a quarterback is comparable to an Andy Dalton. However, the difference is Nick Foles clearly has shown he is able to perform under pressure, and he is able to will his team to victories. Obviously, filling in for Carson Wentz in the last 2 playoffs. He was able to lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl and get them another win last year against the Bears and nearly back to the NFC Championship game. However, that throw to Alshon Jeffrey where he just, right through his hands, dropped the ball and the Saints intercepted it, ended those hopes, but that was of no fault of Nick Foles. So to me, he is a slightly above average quarterback. Talking about tangibles, his ability to throw the ball downfield, his ability to make reads. I think the RPOs helped him with his ability to make progressions, go to his 2nd, 3rd, and 4th reads if he pulls it back and decides to throw the ball. I think that made him a better decision maker. We'll see if he continues to do that with the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. I would assume because it works so well for him that they are going to implement RPOs into their offense more. But even though he's a slightly above average quarterback, and that may garner him to be lower than a high B tier, he's shown the ability to perform under pressure when you need him most, and that counts. That counts for a lot. So, again, Nick Foles entering the 2019 season is a high B tier quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo, to me, right about in between Nick Foles and Andy Dalton. So if Nick Foles is high B tier, Andy Dalton's low B tier, Jimmy Garoppolo is a mid B tier quarterback. Obviously, he tore his ACL last season after getting that monster contract from the San Francisco 49ers. He played well in relief of Tom Brady when he had his suspension a few years ago, and he played well with the Niners. I believe he's still undefeated as a starter. I may be wrong. He may have got a loss before his ACL injury, but I believe he's still like 7-0 as a starter. Obviously, a small sample size, but what he's shown in his small sample size, you cannot deny. He has a tendency to sort of throw things into tight windows and make some poor reads. His interceptions are higher than you'd like to see from a quarterback, so he's a mid B tier. But honestly, Jimmy Garoppolo, from his small sample size and what we've seen, he has the ability to become an A tier quarterback. We just haven't seen enough of a sample size to make that. So, sort of hedging his potential and what we've seen, I would put him as a mid B tier quarterback. Moving on to Jared Goff. I'm not going to lie, I think Jared Goff is helped immensely from the Rams scheme, Sean McVay's scheme with the LA Rams. I think that is a huge advantage for him. However, he's performed in that system. Led him to a Super Bowl last year. Didn't perform how you would like in that game, but he was still able to lead them there and get him on the brink of a Lombardi trophy. So to me, Jared Goff, you can make the argument for an A tier quarterback. I'm going to put him at the highest B tier possible. Also, he's going to be my highest B tier quarterback ahead of Nick Foles and Garoppolo. Again, he struggled with Jeff Fisher immensely. But as we've seen, Jeff Fisher is basically the epitome of a average to below average coach. So you can't really fault him much there. Plus, it was his rookie year. But since he's gotten with Sean McVay, the last 2 years have been incredible for Jared Goff. He's been a Pro Bowler. Obviously, the system and the weapons around him have helped him tremendously. Having Todd Gurley, having Brandon Cooks, having Cooper Kupp before he got injured, having Robert Woods, having those guys has really helped him. However, he's proven it. He's got a pretty strong arm. He's pretty accurate. He's above average in arm strength, above average in accuracy. I'd say he's a above average decision maker. I think Jared Goff is a high B tier quarterback. Has the potential to get to A tier. Now, Dwayne Haskins, I am going to... he hasn't played in the NFL. We saw him 1 year in college. So, honestly, I'm going to put him here. I'm going to put him as a low C tier quarterback. I'm not going to put him in D tier because we haven't seen enough, but I'm not going to put him ahead of these other NFL quarterbacks because we haven't seen what he can do. Has he looked good so far in practices? Yes. Was he outstanding at Ohio State? Absolutely. But we know that college play and practice play does not translate to the NFL field. He hasn't played an NFL preseason game even, so I do not feel like I'm able to accurately judge Dwayne Haskins yet. So I'm going to put him at a low C tier. Really, I just can't evaluate him yet, as I can't any NFL quarterback that hasn't played yet in their rookie year. So moving on to Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson is... It's tough. I'll put him low B tier. I'll put him just above Andy Dalton. Low B tier quarterback. I think he progressed a little more than these other quarterbacks. He's shown what he was able to do running the ball. He ran for nearly 700 yards when he was a starter with the Baltimore Ravens last year. Led him to the playoffs. Wasn't able to win the playoff game against the LA Chargers, but he almost brought them back at the end. Obviously, the one knock on Lamar Jackson is his ability to stand in the pocket, make reads, and throw the ball downfield. A lot of people view him as a run-first quarterback. He's going to look to run, and if that's not there, then he'll throw. I don't see it that way moving forward. And I think instinctively, when you're a runner and you're an athlete, especially in your rookie year, you're going to do that first when the pocket collapses, when your first or second read isn't what you want to see. You're going to look to escape and use your legs. That's an advantage. I think a lot of people try to bring athleticism and running quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick. They try to use their legs as, a disadvantage for them. Oh, they're not able to stand in the pocket and throw. They just run all the time. But they are superior athletes. To all these people in the NFL. These NFL players, they are the cream of the crop in terms of athletes in the NFL, and their athleticism, their ability to run, their ability to move the pocket, their ability to escape, their elusiveness is an advantage. Does he need to work on his pocket passing and his read progression, his ability to make tight throws down the field? Absolutely. But he's got a great arm. I think he has a very underrated arm. It's a very strong arm. His accuracy is average. Sometimes it looks like he has pinpoint accuracy down the field. Other times, he overthrows a 7-yard slant by 5 yards. So he's got some work to do, but I like the progressions he made in his rookie year. I think he'll continue to progress, and I think he is a low B-tier quarterback entering the 2019 season. Now, with Case Keenum, I think Case Keenum, again, I compared him to Kirk Cousins before. I didn't think they were very, much different. So I do think, I'll put him right by Kirk Cousins. I'll put him slightly ahead of Kirk Cousins, actually. I debated if I thought Keenum was better than Flacco, but for now, I'll put him behind Flacco. So Case Keenum to me is very similar to Kirk Cousins, except he hasn't gotten paid. Simple as that. Now Kirk Cousins has had more above average seasons that haven't led to wins and getting his team to the postseason and winning. But Case Keenum has strung a few seasons where I'd say I'd compare him to Nick Foles in his. Now, I think Nick Foles is better under pressure, but I'd compare him to Nick Foles in his ability to perform under pressure. I think he's comparable to him there. But the reason that he's not in Nick Foles' stratosphere is because I don't think he's as good of a quarterback as Nick Foles. Even though I think Nick Foles is slightly above average, I think Case Keenum is probably slightly below average as a quarterback, but his ability to perform under pressure is what propels him into that mid-C tier ranking, whereas Kirk Cousins mechanically is probably a average to above average quarterback, but his ability to perform under pressure is pretty low, which is why Case Keenum, when you average the two out, is slightly ahead of Kirk Cousins. So I'll put him at a mid-C tier quarterback. Drew Lock, same thing as Dwayne Haskins, hasn't played in the league yet. I do not feel adequate to judge him. Andrew Luck, A-tier quarterback. Oh, not S-tier. My bad. He is an A-tier quarterback. Obviously he had that lingering injury where he sat out, that full season. However, it was basically a season and a half, actually, maybe even more. But he came back last year, led the Colts to the playoffs, could not beat the Chiefs. But, you can't really fault him. The Chiefs were on an absolute roll last year. Came one offsides call from getting to the Super Bowl. So, Andrew Luck, A-tier quarterback to me. Very good arm, very good accuracy, very, very good mobility. Underrated mobility for Andrew Luck. His ability to run. He's a smart runner. Doesn't take many hits. He's very good when he gets outside the pocket of continuing to make his reads. That's what you want to see, guys like Lamar Jackson who are able to run and get out of the pocket, Josh Allen who are able to run and get out of the pocket. Once they get out of the pocket, don't lose sight of your receivers. Obviously, you get into scramble mode, their routes are going to be different. They're going to adjust to where you're scrambling. If you're running towards the right side, they're going to go to the right side of the field, try to get open. Andrew Luck is very good at reading those progressions and finding an open receiver down the field when the play breaks down. So Andrew Luck, A-tier quarterback. Patrick Mahomes, highest A-tier quarterback, breaking through into S-tier. He had a great season, his first full season as a starter, MVP of the league, doorstep of the Super Bowl, 5,000 yards passing, 50 touchdowns, low interceptions. He has a cannon of an arm. He's accurate. He's mobile. He makes his reads. He's a smart player. The one knock I'd say, he has a tendency to hold the ball a little too long. I'd like him to get the ball out a little sooner. You saw that in the Rams game, that Monday Night Football thriller. Patrick Mahomes took a couple strip sacks that the Rams returned for touchdowns, and that ended up costing them the game, 54-51. He threw a late pick in that game, but that was more in desperation time to get in the field goal range. So even based on one season, very, very high A-tier quarterback for Patrick Mahomes. Eli Manning. Yeah, Eli's tough. A lot of people give him flack. I think he's a mid to high C-tier quarterback still. Now, I know, he hasn't produced much in the last few years, but look at the Giants organization and, blame them. I don't see how you can. They have Saquon Barkley. They had Odell Beckham Jr., Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram. They had playmakers, but that O-line was atrocious. Yeah, does Eli Manning need to stand in there with more confidence and make throws? Yeah. Sometimes he frankly collapses when the pocket collapses and he just sort of gives up the play. But he's 38, 39. He's not going to take the same hits he could a decade ago. He's trying to increase his, number of years he can play in the NFL. He's not going to take the same hits he would when he was 27. So I don't really blame him. That offensive line needs to get better. They need to play better. But when he's in there, I think his accuracy, I think, is still slightly above average. His arm, it's taken a few steps back. It was probably slightly above average. Now it's probably slightly below average. But, I think you look at the results and then you can pull the worst plays out and you can say, he's the worst quarterback in the league. He's a D-tier quarterback. But that's just not fair. You have to look at the whole body of work, what he was dealing with, the offensive line in place, the defense, how often he was on the field. Eli Manning, to me, mid to high C-tier quarterback entering the 2019 season. I think he gets way, way too overly criticized. Marcus Mariota, to me, he is right in between Andy Dalton and Lamar Jackson. I think Marcus Mariota has proven that he can make decisions down the field when he's running and passing. When he gets out of the pocket, he's not Andrew Luck, not even in the same stratosphere, but he's shown an ability when he gets out of the pocket, still able to have his eyes downfield and make progressions. I think he still runs too much. I think he needs to, dial his running back because, his injuries that he's had, he's not going to want to run as much if he wants to, keep his durability and not be overtaken by Ryan Tannehill. But his arm strength, average, his accuracy's average, but his mobility is very, very good. I'd say he's one of the top 5 to 6 quarterbacks in the NFL in terms of mobility. His ability to get out of the pocket and to make plays. Now he's had, one playoff win. You'd like to see more out of the second overall pick in the 2014 draft. But, he's a low B-tier quarterback to me. He's above Andy Dalton because he's won a playoff game. He's behind Lamar Jackson and Jimmy Garoppolo because they've shown more in their limited time playing in the NFL that proves to me that their potential is above what Marcus Mariota is currently in the NFL, so he's a low B-tier quarterback. Baker Mayfield. Oh, man. This is tough. I'll put him right ahead of Nick Foles and right below Jared Goff. I think he's a high B-tier quarterback. We've seen 1 year from Baker Mayfield. And was it good? Yeah, but there were still mistakes. There were still interceptions. He needs to work on that. He has that gunslinger Brett Favre mentality. Now, that can be a great thing. That can be a horrendous thing. You need to find a happy medium. And, high B tier. We'll see. The Browns are obviously a stacked team on paper. We'll see Baker Mayfield should be able to put up big numbers that leads to wins and playoff wins this year with guys like Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, and David Njoku as his playmakers. So, high B tier quarterback. Kyler Murray, again, do not feel like I can rate him yet. Hasn't played an NFL game. Does he look like he can be a mid to high B tier quarterback out the gate? Yes. But we haven't seen him in NFL action yet, so I will not rate him right now. Cam Newton. Like he's a mid. He's on the low end of mid B tier. That makes sense. So, yeah, if Jimmy Garoppolo's high-end B tier and Lamar Jackson is in the mid to low tier, then Cam Newton is somewhere in between mid B tier and mid-low B tier, if that makes any sense. He's gotten to a Super Bowl. He's been an NFL MVP. He's shown his ability to run, but he hasn't shown the ability to run smartly, I guess. He takes a lot of hits, which forces him to get injured, which forces him to either miss games or play injured, which affects his performance. If he slid more and he wasn't always injured, and we could see how he would play, healthy for a full 16 games, we haven't seen that recently. He'd probably be potentially a low A-tier quarterback from what we saw in 2015, just 4 years ago. But he's 30 now. He's a running quarterback. I think he's more of a passer than a runner now, but it's like 51-49. Like, am I going to pass or run when the pocket breaks down? And when he passes, he has a tendency to throw off his back foot, which leads to errant throws, which leads to interceptions or incredibly errant and inaccurate passes. So he has one of the strongest arms in the league. He can be accurate when he's set and healthy, but we haven't seen that recently. So right now he's probably average to below average in terms of accuracy. And the Panthers have, they fell apart last year, collapsed. We're in position to have potentially the second or third seed in the playoffs in the NFC, but ended up not making the playoffs. They faltered last year. We'll see what they can do this year. Cam Newton, probably the definition of a mid B-tier quarterback. Dak Prescott. To me, Dak Prescott is below Nick Foles and in front of Jimmy Garoppolo. The reason he's in front of Jimmy Garoppolo is because he has Jimmy and Dak have shown around the same things results-wise, but Dak's shown it over a far more extended period of time. The reason Dak's behind Nick Foles is because his ability that he's shown, the stats he's able to put up, the wins he's able to generate in the regular season have not translated to the playoffs, and Nick Foles has proven he can win in the playoffs, even though he is probably not as talented of a quarterback as Dak Prescott. Now, Dak has a lot of weapons around him, a great offensive line, Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, Jason Witten's back. That should be a big help for him as a security blanket over the middle that he desperately missed last year, even though they did win a playoff game and get to the divisional round. We'll see what they can do this year. Dak Prescott, to me, where I have him ranked, he is trending upward. He's at the high, mid B tier, but he's trending upward towards high B tier, if not low A tier quarterback, depending on how he plays this season. Phillip Rivers, low A tier quarterback. Now, the knock on Phillip's career, he's won a lot of games. He's thrown for a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns. Two things that he's knocked on: the playoff wins are not there. Too many interceptions. Phillip Rivers has been one of the best pocket passers in the NFL over the last 15 years. Not very mobile, but he does have the ability, sort of like Drew Brees. Neither are mobile, but they're mobile in the pocket. So when it collapses, they find a way to step up, they find a crease, and they're able to find a throwing window. See, Drew Brees, because of his height, finds that throwing window, makes the throw. Phillip Rivers has the height, but he has that sidearm. Him and Matthew Stafford have that sidearm that they're able to go to and sort of avoid the defense when they step up in the pocket and they have a rusher coming at them, rather than throwing it above them, which could get swatted down from a 6'7" defensive lineman. They got that sidearm, very accurate passer. I'd say, slightly above average arm. The Chargers got to the divisional round last year, lost to the New England Patriots. A lot of questions were on Anthony Lynn, their head coach, on his defensive strategy. But offensively, they did okay. Could it have been better? Yes. But what Phillip Rivers has shown the last few seasons, after missing the playoffs for a few seasons, early in the decade, like 2010, 2011, he's played extremely well. I think he's a low A-tier quarterback heading into next season. Now, Aaron Rodgers, to me, is an S-tier quarterback. I think he's a low S-tier quarterback, though. I'd put him behind Tom Brady and Drew Brees. He's won a Super Bowl, multiple-time NFL MVP. He's basically a Pro Bowler every year, still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. His arm strength, top tier. His accuracy may be the best. His ability to make plays out of the pocket and in the pocket, potentially the best in the NFL. But the last 2 years, whether it's a combination of injuries or a slight drop in production, he just hasn't been the same player he's been in the past 5 years before the previous 2 seasons. But with the new head coach, Matt LaFleur, and the new offense, we will see if he is able to continue playing at that high level that he's shown in his MVP and Super Bowl seasons. Definitely has the potential, but because he's so great, even the last 2 seasons, he would have been high S tier. Now he is probably, I got him as the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL. When you look at talent and production combined, it's not just talent, it's not just production, it's got to be both. So to me, Aaron Rodgers, low S tier quarterback. Big Ben Roethlisberger, I think he is a low A tier quarterback. The knock on Big Ben is really his want and desire at this point. Does he want to compete as much as, he's still playing, but he said in the past, he doesn't know if this will be his last year or when he'll retire at age 34, 35. But, Ben Roethlisberger is still an elite quarterback in this league. Now we'll see what happens. He had a slight drop-off last year when Le'Veon Bell wasn't there. We'll see what happens when Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell are gone. But they still have playmakers around him to help him out. Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner. We'll see how James Washington progresses So the Steelers have playmakers to help him out. And he's still a good quarterback. He's got, above average arm. He's got elite arm strength still, I think. His accuracy is above average. His ability to stay in the pocket and deliver throws, shake off defenders, best in the NFL still. He's still a great quarterback. Now, has it resulted to wins in the last few years in postseason? No, not like you'd like to see. They've gotten to an AFC Championship game 3 years ago, divisional round 2 years ago, last year, just missed the playoffs. I still think he's a low A-tier quarterback. I haven't seen a precipitous drop in his play. A drastic drop. Has it dropped off? Yes. Was he in that Andrew Luck, Pat Mahomes range 5-6 years ago? Yeah. Is he now? No. But is he still in that group? I think he is. You can make the argument high B tier. I wouldn't argue with you. But I think he's a low A tier quarterback. Josh Rosen. I'm going to put him... You know what? I'm going to put him right there. I'm going to put him below Ryan Fitzpatrick and ahead of the rookies. And really, it's because we have two things. Small sample size. He was playing for the worst team in the league. They were literally like dead last or second to dead last in like every offense and defensive category last year. The Cardinals, who went 3-13. He got inserted, probably played a little sooner than he thought he would. He had an aging receiver in Fitzgerald who's still great, but, has he lost a step? Yeah. David Johnson coming off a season-long injury from the previous year. He had limited weapons offensively and probably the worst line in the NFL. And his defense didn't help him out. That offense was on the field a lot because the defense was getting scored on a lot. So, Josh Rosen, to really no fault of his own. Well, some fault. I mean, he did play, solidly in some games, but he had rookie growing pains, as you would expect. But because we haven't seen him in a stable system, and he hasn't played exceedingly well, and it hasn't led to wins, and he hasn't played consistently well, I gotta put him below Fitzpatrick in terms of quarterback rankings. So he'd probably be the worst quarterback in the NFL if I had to rank them. If I rank the quarterbacks, he'd probably be slightly ahead of Drew Lock because we haven't seen much of him. Obviously, Kyler and Haskins were first-round picks, so we've just seen more of them. Well, we've seen more of Lock than Haskins and Murray, but the Haskins and Murray have shown more production than Lock. But because I'm not ranking the rookie quarterbacks because they haven't played an NFL game, Josh Rosen is ahead of them. And I say he hasn't played with a stable organization, and the Dolphins aren't that either. The Cardinals are probably more stable than the Dolphins, looking into 2019 and beyond, at least in the immediate 1 to 2 year future. So is he in a position to where he's going to be able to elevate himself? Probably not. So, we'll see what happens. We'll see if he's able to thrive in the Dolphins offense and with that team. We'll just have to wait and see. Matt Ryan. I'll put him right below Dak Prescott. Matt Ryan, an MVP a few years ago, got his team to the Super Bowl, got a 28-3 lead with just over 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and then the collapse happened. Patriots won in overtime, 34-28. Next year, the Falcons get to the playoffs, losing the divisional round, and then last year, they didn't make the playoffs, I'm pretty sure. They had a pretty bad year. So Matt Ryan Some of that has to do with Kyle Shanahan leaving after the Super Bowl, becoming the head coach of the 49ers, and then Steve Sarkisian coming in. Some questionable play calling by him. Probably hasn't allowed Matt Ryan to thrive as much, but Matt Ryan's a veteran in this league. He's been in this league for a decade now. A new coordinator, yeah, it's going to have some growing pains, but how many coordinators has Tom Brady had? He's been able to get through these coordinators. Obviously, the system has been the same in New England under Belichick, but in terms of offensive coordinators, quarterback coach, he's been through so much. A offensive coordinator change to Steve Sarkisian shouldn't have been as detrimental as it was to his play, but it was, and you have to downgrade him for that. So to me, he's a mid-tier B quarterback with the potential to become a low A-tier quarterback in that Ben Roethlisberger range, depending on how he plays this season. Matthew Stafford. Stafford's interesting. He puts up the numbers, but they don't win. So I have to take that into heavy account. And I'd probably put Stafford right below Derek Carr and right ahead Eli Manning entering the 2019 NFL season. He puts up so much numbers, but you see there's some inconsistency. He makes some mistakes with his reads, throws more interceptions than you'd like on a year into year out basis, and the Lions don't win. I think they have average playmaker. I mean, when he had Megatron, it's not like, we were winning when I had one of the best receivers in NFL history, and then he retires and I have no playmakers and can't win. Obviously, you lose Megatron, that hurts a lot. But, Stafford had Megatron for 6 years, 7 years, and I think, about 6 years, I think he had Megatron for. And they won one playoff game? Did they? I don't even think they won a playoff game. I think they were 0-2 in the playoffs. I think they lost to the Saints one year, and then they lost to the Cowboys another year. So it's not like he was winning. They were getting to the playoffs when he had an elite playmaker. So he showed the ability to perform when he had a clear number one wideout, one of the best wideouts in the league. But he hasn't shown the ability since, and they weren't even able to win then. So it's not like you can give an excuse that, Stafford was making NFC championships, divisional rounds, year in and year out when he had Megatron. And now he has not much talent or younger talent that hasn't developed and progressed yet and shown they can perform consistently. And now he's missing the playoffs year in, year out. That's not the narrative. So Stafford, probably a high C-tier quarterback. Mitch Trubisky. I'm going to put Mitch right above Mariota and right below Lamar Jackson. Really, I look at Mitch in a 1 year, even though he's been in the league for 2 years, I really look at last year as the main year. That first year, the Bears were not a good football team. They still had John Fox, so I really judge the new regime with him and Matt Nagy. With Jared Goff, I'm not going to judge him all that harshly, considering it was his first year in the league, his rookie year, and under Jeff Fisher. I'm not going to judge Mitch Trubisky all that harshly for his first year and under John Fox. He's going to have growing pains. He had to switch regimes from year 1 to 2, but he thrived in year 2 and first year under Matt Nagy. They made the playoffs. He put them in position to go to the divisional round against the Saints. Cody Parkey missed a field goal, and the Bears went home in the wild card round. But Mitch Trubisky led the Bears to the top of the NFC North. And he played pretty well. He's above average passer, I think. His decision-making and read progression, I think year 1 to year 2, he vastly improved. He still needs to improve in that. His mobility is great. Great mobility. Sort of underrated mobility in the Josh Allen sense that they're not like inherent runners. They're still passers, but they have that second ability to run. Whereas you look at a Lamar Jackson, and even a Marcus Mariota, and you might think of them as more runners, run first, pass second. They have the same, obviously not the same ability as Lamar Jackson, but Trubisky and Allen have that same like Mariota type ability where they can run and pass. But the difference, I think, between Allen, what we see in year one, and Trubisky last year compared to a guy like Mariota, and why I have Trubisky slightly ahead of Mariota, is because Trubisky still looks to pass before he runs. Now, the second step he needs to take to get to the level of Patrick Mahomes and Andrew Luck is he has to be able to, when outside the pocket, he has to be able to make better progressions in his reads and still look downfield. I think when he gets out of the pocket, that's when he, it's number one decision to run. When the pocket breaks down, he can still look to throw, but once it's broken down and he's out, I think the next step he has to take is be able to make the progressions downfield while outside the pocket in order to elevate himself to a better quarterback. So Mitch Trubisky, I will put at a low B tier right now. Deshaun Watson. I'm going to put Deshaun Watson. I'll put him right here. I think he's a mid-tier B, a mid-B tier quarterback, right above Matt Ryan, right below Dak Prescott. Deshaun's been injured early in his career, but when he's played, he's shown an uncanny ability. It's basically Mitch Trubisky next level in terms of what he's able to do running the ball and passing the ball. He's got a better arm than Trubisky. I think he's more accurate than Trubisky. He's more athletic than Trubisky. He's a better runner outside the pocket than Trubisky. He's more patient. His running style almost reminds me of Le'Veon Bell in terms of Le'Veon waits behind his blockers to run. And when Deshaun gets in the open field and he's running, he sort of just waits to see where the defense is going to move and then looks to run, while some of these other quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson will just outrun you. Deshaun doesn't have the ability to just flatline outrun you, but he uses his intellect to scan the defense when he's running and decide, can I continue to run? Can I make a crease left, get a few more yards, and then slide? Do I need to slide right now? Can I outrun them? We saw a run against Cincinnati, I think on Thursday Night Football, where he ran like a 48-yard touchdown run. And you saw it wasn't straight line speed. It wasn't sprinter speed. He wasn't just outrunning everyone. It was slow. He was running down the sideline. Then he slows down, makes a decision to cut back, reads the defense, decides that, he can make it to the end zone, doesn't have to slide or give himself up. Very smart runner. I just want to see him, one, translate it to playoff victories, and number two, I just want to see him play more, consistently. I want him healthy. Otherwise, he has the ability to be an A-tier quarterback in that, Andrew Luck range. If he can show it consistently, continue to improve heading into his third year. Now, Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is probably the most difficult quarterback to evaluate because he's been injured so much. He hasn't played in the last two postseasons. I can't judge his clutchness. He was arguably the NFL MVP before he went down against the Rams 2 years ago. I haven't seen enough of him. He just got the largest guaranteed contract in NFL history for a quarterback, and I haven't seen him. So, it's probably a bit unfair, but I'm going to put him right ahead of Cam Newton. You know what? I'll put him above Jimmy Garoppolo even. I'll put him behind Matt Ryan, though, because Matt Ryan's had some more playoff success. Carson Wentz is more talented than Matt Ryan, in my opinion. But we haven't seen it. He hasn't been consistently healthy. So to me, he's a mid-B tier quarterback because I haven't seen it in the playoffs. Great arm, great mobility outside the pocket, great ability to run. He's comparable to Deshaun Watson to me in that sense. He's not Russell Wilson in this sense, but he just has the ability to make plays. But again, we haven't seen it enough to where I can say that's Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's done it so consistently, just able to make plays out of nothing, scrambling around and finding someone for 30 yards downfield. He's shown that ability, but again, I haven't seen it consistently because he's not on the field. So because of that, you hedge his injuries against his production, against his potential. That's a mid-B tier quarterback, but based on what we've seen, that would be trending upward if he's able to stay healthy. Now, second to last quarterback here, Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson is a mid-A tier quarterback, below Pat Mahomes and Andrew Luck, but ahead of Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger. Now, Russell Wilson looked amazing in his first few years with Seattle, with the Legion of Boom, getting them to Super Bowls, winning a Super Bowl. They've faltered since the Legion of Boom is no more, and that offense has faltered, lost key pieces. Obviously, Jimmy Graham's gone. Doug Baldwin retired. That offensive line has fell apart, and they're trying to rebuild it back up. Marshawn Lynch is gone. They're a new form team, but the one consistency next to Pete Carroll is Russell Wilson. I mean, you got Bobby Wagner and stuff, but offensively, the one consistency is Russell Wilson. He's just, I look at him, I think the Seahawks don't have a chance to win. Or I look at a play, and I think that's dead in the water, and he comes up and he makes a play, and not only gets him out of a negative gain, but turns it into a positive. So it's not just that instead of a 15-yard loss, it's nothing. It's instead of a 15-yard loss, it's 35 yards. It's unbelievable. I've never seen it in my life, the ability for a quarterback to make plays out of nothing and not just turn nothing into, okay, live for another down, but turn it into a positive play and not just a couple yards, usually big, big plays downfield. So Russell Wilson, it carried his team to the playoffs last year. They could not beat the Cowboys, but it was a competitive game down to the wire. Russell Wilson, to me, a mid-A tier quarterback. I think he gets underrated. I think he's underrated. I think he gets overlooked a lot. So to me, a mid-A tier quarterback. Lastly, Jameis Winston. And I gotta put him... I put him right above Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think he's a low C tier quarterback. Whether it's off the field stuff with Jameis, whether it's injuries, whether it's inconsistent play. I mean, he was the number 1 overall pick right ahead of Mariota, and Mariota's had the clearly better career. Jameis has the talent. He's got a above average arm. I'd say he's got average accuracy. His ability to make plays in the pocket and shrug defenders off isn't Roethlisberger, but, it's in the stratosphere of Roethlisberger. He's very good at that. But, again, we haven't seen it consistently at all. Jameis Winston is the poster child for a quarterback that should be in the high B to low A tier and is not even close. He's had weapons. He has Mike Evans. He had Deshaun Jackson. O.J. Howard's there. Adam Humphries was there. He hasn't been able to do it. And you have to judge him by that, even though he puts up, you look at the numbers and you're like, well, he's better than some other quarterbacks. But a lot of that's garbage time. A lot of that's games that don't matter late in the season. A lot of that's one-off games where he's really strong. He might throw for 370 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks one game. Then the next 3 games, he throws for 450 yards, 4 touchdowns and 6 picks. So, Jameis Winston, to me, this is a make-or-break year for him. He either steps up in Bruce Arians' system, and there's no excuses. Bruce Arians is a hell of a coach. He made Carson Palmer a Pro Bowl quarterback, an MVP contender. There's no reason that Jameis Winston can't take the next step that we've thought the Bucs could take for the last few years, and it's on him. It's on him to do it as the leader. It's the number 1 pick 5 years ago. It's on him to lead that team. He needs to show he can do it, and if he can't, you got to get rid of him. And Jameis Winston probably becomes a backup in the league. his talent is starter level, but his off the field stuff, his injuries, his inconsistent play, and sometimes even his desire to win makes me think that he doesn't want it bad enough. So Jameis Winston, a mid to low C tier quarterback for me. Now, that's the end of the list. I have no one in the D tier. Because I don't think... Now, D tier to me is Nathan Peterman. Nathan Peterman's not starting in the NFL. The reason that starting quarterbacks aren't in the D tier is because if you're a starter, you're at least a C tier player 98% of the time. You saw Peterman start, but that was because of injuries, generally in Buffalo. And then he was out of there pretty easily. You're not going to see D-tier level quarterbacks start for an NFL franchise much, and if you do, they're tanking. And the reason, there's a lot of teams that probably are tanking. Miami, but they want to see what they can get in Rosen. The Giants, they drafted Daniel Jones. He wasn't on this list, but Daniel Jones would be, I wouldn't rate him again. He'd be low C tier in the Murray, Haskins lock range. But, yeah, so that's my list. There's a lot of B and C tier quarterbacks in the league. Now, that's sort of a misconception. You're like, oh, a lot of C tiers, a lot of B tiers. But this is the healthiest the quarterbacks have ever been in the NFL. The healthiest the quarterback position has ever been, the most elite quarterbacks. You go to other eras, and you look at Cam Newton, you look at Marcus Mariota, you look at Matt Stafford, you look at Joe Flacco. Those guys are going to be high B, A-tier quarterbacks in other eras. But because of the depth of talent in the league right now and how plentiful the top tier is, you look, 3 S-tier quarterbacks, 5 A-tier, that's 8, 32 teams. So you're telling me, right, that 25% of the league is the elite tier. All 8 of these guys will be Hall of Famers that you see. Others have a chance to make it in the B and C tier. So, absolutely strong crop of quarterbacks in the NFL right now. The ratings of B and C tier are not because that's what they are historically. It's what they are in comparison to the other quarterbacks in the NFL that they are playing against and they are competing against. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I know it was a long video, but this is my 2019 NFL quarterback tier list, and I will see you in the next video.